Hello again everybody. I've had my Mutt Mastiff 125cc for nearly 2 years now, and I've covered nearly 10,000 kilometres on it. So what do I think to it after spending all that time with it? Well, I do see a lot of negative comments about these bikes on the Facebook groups, but you do have to remember that people do only tend to post up their negative experiences. If you're really happy with something, you've got no issues, then there's nothing really to post about. So bear that in mind when you are reading things about anything really. But let's start with the negatives. What have I found with this bike and what has gone wrong over the period that I've owned it? Now, the first thing I noticed was the speed and power of this bike. It's a little bit slower than the 125 that I did my CBT on at the riding school, which I believe was a Yamaha. Now, this is capable of 60 miles an hour on a good day. It's been run in properly. I did run it in properly over the first 500 miles, but really it is still affected quite a lot by hills, headwinds, that sort of thing. So a lot of days 50 mile an hour is about all you can expect really. I'm quite heavy as well, which probably does make a bit of a difference. So as 125s go, it is certainly not the most powerful one out there, I don't think. Not that I have a great deal of experience in comparing them, but I certainly get overtaken by people on 125s who appear to be going an awful lot faster than I am. Another thing that I noticed fairly early on was you do get condensation in the Speedo on dampish days. It's nice and clear at the moment, but it's a very crisp, dry winter's day. But yeah, any hint of moisture in the air and this gets rather steamy. Now, another thing I noticed early on was a sort of loud buzzing noise coming from the front mudguard when you reach sort of higher speeds. And that was the mudguard just vibrating against the forks. I added these rubber pads, which are the sort of thing that you find on the bottom of chair legs to stop you scratching the floor. And they've been there for nearly 2 years now and had no need to replace them, and they've done the job. So that was fixed quite easily. Another thing that happened quite early on was that the battery strap snapped. Now, I did order a replacement, but somehow it didn't fit. So ever since, I've been riding around with this bit of elastic cord, I suppose it is. It's very strong, so I'm not worried about it at all, but yeah, that was an early failure. Another problem I had a while ago was failure of one of the rear indicators. Now, this was eventually replaced under warranty, but it took a bit of a while to get that organised. I did a little video about that, and in the meantime I had to buy an indicator off eBay to keep riding the bike. I could only get a silvery chromy one. Eventually, yeah, it was replaced under warranty with the correct black one, so I was looked after in the end. But yeah, if I hadn't have bought that replacement, it would have been off the road for a little while. And that was mainly the time that it took for Mutt to approve the warranty claim once the evidence had been supplied to the dealer. And they did accept photo evidence in that case, but in a feature warranty claim they didn't, and I had to take it in. Now, this bike is used throughout the winter as long as it's not icy really, and I do treat it fairly regularly with ACF 50, but the first time I took the seat off to do that, I noticed that this box here, which is the ECU, was just laying loose. You can see there are two fixing holes for it in the frame, and the ECU itself has the mounting points for those fixing holes. Now, it's a relatively easy fix. I just got some nice bolts and fixed it in. They're stainless steel bolts there, so yeah, that's nice and solid now. But it's quite alarming just to find it slopping about in that sort of hole really. I have also replaced the front brake light switch after that failed. I didn't bother with a warranty claim for that. That was very easy to buy and fit, quite cheap, from Robin Bank Motorcycles. One of the negatives I did find riding this backwards and forwards to work was when it was dark at night, the headlamp was absolutely woeful. I had quite a rural ride home down country lanes and almost impossible to see where the road was really, so fairly quickly I did have to upgrade the headlamp with an LED insert, and I do have a video about that as well that I'll link in the description. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic now. It's night and day literally riding this with the LED upgrade in the headlamp. In the wetter winter weather I have also had problems with the general electric switch gear, the headlamp switch, the indicators. They all get a little bit flaky when it's damp, so I keep them nicely coated in plus gas and use contact cleaner spray on them sometimes to get them working again, and they always do seem to come good again, but yeah, you have to keep on top of them. And finally, of course, I had the more recent problem with the split in the silencer, and that was replaced under warranty again, but they wouldn't accept photographic evidence. I had to take it into the dealer, get them to look at it, get Mutt to approve it, and then go back for a second appointment to have it replaced. So that's another 2 days lost dealing with that, which yeah, is a right pain really. And in fact the new silencer has gone a bit discoloured. I'm not really sure quite what to do about that yet. It won't polish out, but yeah, one of those things perhaps. I'm certainly not going to have another 2 days of work trying to sort that out. I've got limited holiday and I need to keep it for fun stuff. So enough of the negatives, what about the positives of owning this Mutt Mastiff? Well, you have to remember I am relatively new to motorcycling. This is my first bike, so you do have to bear that in mind when taking account of the things that I'm telling you. Now the first thing I'd say is that it is a fantastic looking bike. You definitely have some pride of ownership with this. I do get stopped and asked about it all the time, and people really do seem to love the look of it. I do think some of the commuter type 125s can look a little bit boring and dull, but yeah, this definitely keeps your interest up, and it's a bit of an incentive to go on and pass the full test, I think. Fingers crossed. Now I have to say as well, it has been reliable. Despite all those little faults, it's never let me down in the sense of getting there or getting home again. There's been absolutely no issues with it starting or anything like that, even in this freezing cold weather. I really like the feel of it. It feels nice and solid. It doesn't feel plasticky and fragile at all. It just feels like it's a good solid sort of motorcycle. But what do I know? I've only ridden 2. Also, I find it quite comfortable. The shocks at the back are a little bit hard, and I know a few people do change those out for different ones to give a more comfortable ride, but providing you're not on really rough roads, I do find it quite nice and yeah, easy to ride, comfortable seat and such. I've been on 100-mile or so rides on it with no real issues. So I guess the question is, with everything that I've experienced over the last 2 years, would I still buy one of these as my first bike? And I think the answer is I probably would. I have sort of fallen in love with it. It is a fantastic bike to look at and to own. You do feel good riding it, whereas just an ordinary commuter kind of thing might be a bit dull and might not be that exciting to ride. Now of course I am going to be moving on to a bigger bike soon, and I think a lot of people do buy these just for a little while, then move on to something bigger once they've passed their full test. So I think if I was doing it again, I probably wouldn't bother buying one brand new. There are a lot of these around second hand that have covered very few miles, and provided they've been looked after, I don't think really you could go too far wrong, as long as you're prepared for those little annoyances You do have to keep going around it, checking everything's tight, checking nothing's rattled loose, and checking everything still works. But provided you're prepared to put a little bit of tinkering time in every week or so, just as you wash it, checking everything out, then I think it is still a good bike to own.